The United States is quietly strengthening a military partnership with a country that claims it doesn't take sides in global conflicts. And if you've ever connected through Ireland on a transatlantic flight, you may have already seen evidence of it happening. Because here's the part that doesn't make the news. Ireland is officially neutral. No NATO membership. No standing army capable of defending its airspace. A defense budget smaller than most European countries spend on highway maintenance. Yet U.S. military aircraft land at Irish airports thousands of times every year. Fully armed troops. Strategic equipment. Logistics operations that would make most NATO members blush. So why is a neutral country quietly becoming one of America's most important military transit hubs in Europe? And more importantly, what changed? But wait, before we begin, please subscribe to ensure that you never miss out on any of my essential stuff. Comment I subscribe below, and I will personally welcome you to our community. With that said, let's get started. Let's start with a place most people think of as a sleepy stopover. Shannon Airport. Small Irish town. Population, about 10,000. Known for duty-free shopping and transatlantic connections. But here's what the tourism brochures don't tell you. Since 2001, since the War on Terror began, over 2.5 million U.S. military personnel have transited through Shannon Airport. Not tourists. Not backpackers exploring Irish castles. Soldiers. To put that in perspective, that's roughly the entire population of Chicago passing through one small Irish airport. According to a 2019 RAND Corporation Defense Logistics Review, the United States increased its use of neutral country transit hubs by nearly 38% over the last decade. And Shannon? It's one of the crown jewels in that network. Recent Department of Defense transit data from 2022 shows Shannon handles approximately 30,000 to 40,000 U.S. military personnel annually. Every year. Quietly. Without headlines. Patrick O'Neill worked as a baggage handler at Shannon for 30 years. He started in the 1970s, back when Shannon was genuinely just a civilian airport, loading golf clubs, suitcases full of souvenirs, families heading to visit relatives in America. But something shifted in 2003. During the Iraq War deployment, Patrick was working a night shift when a charter flight landed around 3 a.m. The passengers filed off silently. No families. No excited tourists. Just rows of uniformed soldiers, exhausted, carrying military gear. I remember standing on that tarmac, Patrick said in a 2015 interview, watching those troops refuel and reboard. And I thought, Ireland never voted for this war. Our government kept saying we were neutral. But standing there at 3 in the morning, watching those soldiers, I realized neutrality meant something very different than what I'd been taught in school. Shannon's military use isn't actually new. During World War II, it served as a critical Atlantic crossing point for Allied aircraft. Ireland's geographic position made it invaluable even back then. But the post-9/11 era transformed Shannon from occasional refueling stop into a permanent, quiet military lifeline. And Shannon is just what you can see from the terminal. The real strategic value of Ireland goes much, much deeper. Literally. Here's something most people don't realize about Irish neutrality. It's real. It's written into Irish law and political identity. Ireland has stayed out of NATO since the alliance formed in 1949. It didn't join World War II, remaining neutral even while bombs fell on Belfast just across the border. But geopolitically, maintaining that neutrality has become almost impossible. Because here's Ireland's defense capability. 0 fighter jets. No radar-level air defense system. Just 8,500 active military personnel. To put that in context, Denmark, which has a similar population to Ireland, maintains 17,000 active military personnel and operates F-16 fighter jets. A 2021 study by the European Security and Defense Journal identified Ireland as having Western Europe's largest air defense gap. Over 450,000 square kilometers of essentially unmonitored airspace. The Irish Defence Force's own 2022 white paper quietly acknowledged something stunning. Ireland relies on the UK Royal Air Force for quick reaction alert responses when an authorized aircraft enter Irish airspace. Think about that for a second. Ireland claims neutrality, But when a Russian bomber tests Irish airspace, which has happened multiple times, it's British fighter jets that scramble to intercept. So instead of spending tens of billions building a military infrastructure it genuinely can't afford, Ireland made a different calculation. A quiet one. It allowed U.S. and allied military use of Shannon Airport for troop transport equipment logistics, refueling operations, intelligence cooperation. No formal treaty. No parliamentary votes. No NATO membership. Just permission. Now, here's the question. If you were a small island nation of 5 million people, watching Russia invade Ukraine, watching NATO expansion debates tear through Europe, watching military tensions rise across the continent, would you spend money you don't have building a military you can't sustain? Or would you quietly align with the world's most powerful military and hope nobody notices? But not everyone in Ireland is comfortable with this arrangement. This has sparked massive protests. Peace activists have blockaded Shannon, arguing this blatantly violates neutrality. The Irish government's response? They maintain a doctrine of military neutrality, not moral neutrality, meaning Ireland can facilitate allied logistics without directly joining conflicts. That's a very fine line, and it's getting harder to walk, because there's another reason America values Ireland beyond just convenient geography. Here's a statistic that should genuinely stop you cold. 97% of global internet traffic travels through undersea cables, not satellites, not wireless networks. Physical cables lying on the ocean floor, your banking transactions, GPS navigation, air traffic control, international phone calls, that YouTube video you're watching right now. All of it depends on undersea cables. And here's where Ireland becomes critical. Over 50 major transatlantic cables land in or near Irish waters. These cables handle approximately $10 trillion in daily financial transactions between North America and Europe. The Submarine Cable Map project shows Ireland as a landing point for major cables including AEC 1/2 from Maria. These aren't just data lines. They are the circulatory system of the global economy. A 2022 study published in Nature Communications documented something alarming. A 29% increase in suspicious naval activity near critical transatlantic cable infrastructure since 2015. Unknown submarines. Unidentified surface vessels. Activity concentrated near cable routes. Then in 2022, the Nord Stream pipeline explosions happened. Europe's largest energy pipeline, blown up underwater. The European Commission's 2023 Critical Infrastructure report immediately listed undersea cables as high-risk targets in any future European conflict. And guess whose waters those cables run through? Ireland's. Siobhan Kelly helped design early Atlantic cable routes back in the 1980s and 90s when she worked for Iacom, Ireland's national telecom company. Back then, she said, the biggest worry was fishing trawlers accidentally snagging lines with their nets. Technical problems, weather damage, normal engineering challenges. But after the Nord Stream explosions, Siobhan realized something that kept her up at night. Ireland sits at a digital choke point that could be targeted during any major conflict. I helped lay those cables thinking we were connecting the world, she said in a 2023 interview. We were building infrastructure for communication, for commerce, for bringing people together. Now I realize we built critical infrastructure that barely anyone protects. If someone wanted to cut Europe off from America digitally, economically, militarily, everything, they'd start in Irish waters. A single cable cut can disrupt billions in commerce. Multiple coordinated cuts could isolate Europe from U.S. communications for weeks or months while repairs are made. And Ireland's maritime defense capability? Practically non-existent. The Irish Naval Service operates just 6 patrol vessels to cover 880,000 square kilometers of ocean. Protecting those cables requires constant surveillance, submarine detection, maritime patrol aircraft, intelligence gathering, all things Ireland can't do alone. So who's doing it? American P-8 Poseidon maritime surveillance aircraft regularly operate from Irish airspace, monitoring submarine activity near cable routes. With quiet Irish permission, no headlines, no official announcements, just the reality that someone needs to watch those cables. And this is exactly why America's interest in Ireland has intensified over the last 5 years. Let's be direct about this. Ireland has become America's unsinkable aircraft carrier, without the political cost of a permanent military base. A 2023 CSI Strategic Mobility Report found something remarkable. U.S. forces can deploy to European or Middle Eastern theaters 41% faster when using Atlantic neutral hubs compared to deploying directly from U.S. mainland bases. 41%. That's not a small advantage. That's the difference between responding to a crisis in days versus weeks. A 2021 U.S.-European Command Logistics Assessment listed Shannon as a critical node in rapid deployment infrastructure. And a 2022 NATO supply chain analysis noted that neutral intermediary countries reduce diplomatic friction in sensitive troop movements, especially to Middle East conflicts where hosting troops from a NATO member's base will be politically explosive. Here's the strategic calculation at play. For the United States, Shannon is roughly 1,000 kilometers closer to potential conflict zones than U.S. mainland bases. Refueling there extends operational range without the enormous cost and political complications of building a permanent forward military base. And crucially, Ireland's neutrality provides political cover. Troops aren't stationed there. They are just transiting. That's a huge difference diplomatically. For Ireland, they get de facto protection without paying NATO membership costs or contributing the required 2% GDP to defense spending. They maintain their neutral status for domestic political consumption. They receive significant economic benefits, airport landing fees, local economic spending from transit personnel, and they gain intelligence sharing on maritime and security threats they couldn't detect themselves. Now here's the POV question. Is this still neutrality? Or is this something else? A mutual insurance policy that both sides benefit from but neither wants to name publicly? Because something has changed recently. Several things. Actually, Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 made European security urgent in ways it hasn't been since the Cold War. Rising Chinese influence in Atlantic shipping routes and European ports has alarmed U.S. strategic planners. Arctic ice melt is opening new naval passages, some very close to Ireland, creating security challenges that didn't exist a decade ago. And the U.S. strategic pivot away from permanent Middle East bases means America needs flexible European logistics more than ever. Real example. During the 2023 U.S. military surge supporting Ukraine with equipment and training personnel, Shannon handled increased logistics traffic. And for the first time in decades, Irish politicians publicly acknowledged it. Small statements, carefully worded, but an acknowledgement nonetheless that something is shifting. Which brings us to the dangerous side of this partnership, the part nobody wants to talk about publicly. Every quiet partnership creates a hidden vulnerability, and Ireland's is growing. In 2022, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova issued explicit warnings about non-aligned states facilitating NATO logistics. She didn't just speak generally. She specifically mentioned Ireland in press briefings. This wasn't subtle. This was a public signal. Tomas Byrne is 75 years old and lives in Cork. Back in the 1980s, he volunteered for Ireland's Civil Defense Organization, a Cold War relic that trained civilians for potential nuclear conflict scenarios. He remembers those drills clearly. Back then, Ireland genuinely believed neutrality would protect them during a NATO-Soviet conflict. We thought staying neutral meant nobody would bother us, Tomas said in a recent interview. That if the worst happened, if nuclear war broke out between the superpowers, Ireland would be spared because we hadn't taken sides. But watching news coverage of Russian naval exercises near Irish waters in 2022, Tomas realized something had fundamentally changed. Now, I think we are a target because we are helping. We are providing logistic support to one side, but we don't have the military capability to defend ourselves if Russia decides to test our commitment. And there's evidence this isn't just paranoia. Recent incidents tell a concerning story. 2022, Russian naval forces conducted military exercises in Irish-controlled waters, specifically in Ireland's exclusive economic zone. It was the closest Russian naval exercises to Ireland in decades. Ireland protested diplomatically but could do nothing militarily. 2023. Unidentified submarine activity was detected in the undersea cable infrastructure off the Irish coast. Irish naval vessels investigated but lacked the technology to properly track or identify the submarine. 2024. The Russian ambassador to Ireland issued carefully worded but unmistakable warnings about consequences of supporting NATO logistics infrastructure. A 2023 Royal United Services Institute report specifically warned that states providing logistical support without formal alliance protection are vulnerable to gray zone intimidation tactics. Ireland was listed as a prime example. The International Crisis Group's 2024 analysis went further, placing Ireland among countries facing increased pressure due to strategic ambiguity in security alignment, helping one side while claiming neutrality. But there is a potential path forward. Increased transparency. Some Irish politicians, particularly younger members of Parliament, now openly discuss the Shannon arrangement rather than pretending it doesn't exist. Naval capability building. Ireland is considering limited maritime defense investments, particularly surveillance technology for protecting undersea cables. EU cooperation. There's discussion of leveraging European defense frameworks like PESCO, Permanent Structured Cooperation, without joining NATO. Diplomatic balancing. Ireland is trying to maintain dialogue with Russia while continuing to support Western logistics, though this is getting harder. So here's the question that matters. Can Ireland genuinely stay neutral while materially helping one side? Or has neutrality already effectively ended? Ireland just hasn't publicly admitted it yet? Because Ireland is rapidly approaching a decision point. Ireland is facing a crossroads, and the decision it makes over the next 5 years will fundamentally reshape European security dynamics. Let me walk you through 3 possible futures. Scenario 1. Formalize the partnership. Ireland could join NATO or create a bilateral defense treaty with the United States. Pros. Clear. Guarantee protection under Article 5 collective defense, access to advanced defense technology and intelligence, formal voice in alliance decisions, rather than being a silent junior partner. Cons. Massive domestic political upheaval. Neutrality is deeply embedded in Irish identity, would lose honest broker status in international conflicts, and peacekeeping could make Ireland a formal target rather than an ambiguous one. Likelihood. Low in the next 5 years. The political opposition would be enormous. Recent polling shows 64% of Irish citizens still support maintaining neutrality, even if many don't fully understand what that means anymore. Scenario 2. Continue the status quo. Keep doing exactly what Ireland is doing now. Maintain quiet cooperation without formal alignment. Pros. Maximum political flexibility domestically and internationally. Continues receiving economic benefits from U.S. military transit. Avoids forcing the Irish public to confront uncomfortable contradictions. Cons. Increasing vulnerability as Russia signals displeasure, growing accusations of hypocrisy from both domestic peace activists and international observers, remains dependent on others' protection without formal guarantees. Likelihood. High. This is politically the easiest path. Inertia is powerful, and politicians naturally gravitate toward avoiding difficult decisions. Scenario 3. Assert true neutrality. End all military flights through Shannon. Reject intelligence cooperation, and invest heavily in independent defense capabilities. Pros. Genuine neutrality with moral consistency could restore Ireland's credibility as neutral mediator in international conflicts aligned with traditional Irish political identity. Cons. Would require estimated 5 to 10 billion euros in defense spending. Ireland doesn't have loss of U.S. protection for undersea cables and airspace. Would anger Ireland's largest ally and economic partner. Might not even be possible given EU obligations and geographic realities. Likelihood. Very low. Ireland simply cannot afford this option. Building a military capable of defending Irish airspace and waters would require tripling or quadrupling the defense budget, money that doesn't exist. Dr. Karen Devine, who studies Irish security policy at Dublin City University, put it bluntly in a 2024 paper. Ireland's neutrality was always more myth than reality. We stayed out of World War II partly through luck, and partly because both sides found our neutrality convenient. The question now is whether Ireland can maintain the fiction while the entire world is watching. And here's the demographic factor that might ultimately decide this. Recent polling shows younger Irish voters, those under 40, have 62% support for maintaining neutrality. But the same poll shows 73% also support closer security cooperation with Europe. That's not a contradiction to them. That's the exact ambiguity Irish foreign policy has operated in for decades. But that ambiguity is becoming impossible to sustain. Because Russia is watching, NATO is watching, and Shannon Airport is still landing American military flights every single day. So here's what I genuinely want to know from you. If you were Ireland, a small country that survived centuries of occupation and conflict by carefully staying out of great power confrontations, what would you actually do? Option A, formally join NATO, accept you'll be a full military target, but get ironclad protection? Option B, keep doing exactly what you're doing now, quietly helping America while officially claiming neutrality and hoping nobody forces the issue? Option C, spend billions you don't have building a real military, tell both NATO and Russia you're truly staying out of it, and hope that's actually possible in 2025? Because here's what nobody in Irish politics wants to say out loud. Ireland might not actually get to choose anymore. The world has changed. The Atlantic has become a strategic battleground again. Those undersea cables aren't just communication lines. They are potential weapons. And Shannon Airport has already chosen a side, even if Dublin hasn't officially admitted it. Russia knows this. America knows this. The only people pretending otherwise are Irish politicians trying to avoid a painful conversation. So what should Ireland do? Tell me in the comments. And if you think your country is facing the same impossible choice between neutrality and survival, let me know that too. Because Ireland's dilemma isn't unique. It's just the clearest example of a question facing small countries everywhere in 2025. In a world of superpowers and shifting alliances, does neutrality even exist anymore?